No question about it, Storm. The government is having trouble with its budget, but you might end up having a little trouble with yours. When you see the price tags on this year's hottest Christmas toys, Maxine Block says the people who make electronic games smile when they look at their bank books.
These games may very well be at the top of many Christmas lists. Electronic games being heralded by folks in the trade as this year's holiday bestseller. There are so many of these games available that it's difficult to know which ones to buy, and that's why toy manufacturers are spending millions of dollars in advertising.
Mission: find the 3 keys, lay siege to the tower, and defeat the enemy within.
In this battery-operated game, the player uses electronic sounds as clues to get through the maze and steal the treasure. It's being called this year's hot item.
I think the hottest item makers are the TV commercials. There's no question about it. The children watch them, and the people know it. The manufacturers know it, and they know what times to put the TV commercials on, and the kids know.
Electronic handheld games like this one are also very hot items this time of year. What makes them so popular? Well, the buyers here say the kids like to see the action and the color, and they love hearing the noise. Then there are the electronic video games. You hook them up to your TV set. They're expensive, top price nearly $300, but those who sell them say that it's a very good investment.
I remember when I was a kid, my father would buy a game for the family, and we'd play it. And back then, it was usually the most expensive game that was purchased for us. Now, of course, times being things being that they are, the family game is now turned into and around the TV set, it seems. And this is an ideal gift. Everyone can play it. Everyone can get involved.
The problem may be too involved. Some argue that players get so hypnotized by these games that they have little time for anything else.
I have mixed emotions. I've been looking at the Intellivision and the Atari over there. I have young kids, and I've been thinking about eye-hand coordination and things like that, developing those. But then I've been reading in the paper and seeing on TV the articles of the parents groups that are against them. And we're thinking it over, looking for a Christmas gift, something useful.
Why are parents against them?
They say that, I think a lot of the parents say that they're, especially in the arcade parlors, that they're occupying too much of the kids' time, taking their lunch money, things like that.
They're kind of expensive. Do you have one?
Yeah.
Who bought it for you?
My mother.
Did she say it was a big sacrifice?
Yeah.
How many hours do you play it?
I don't know, 6 or 7.
A day?
Yeah.
Well, you heard right, and that's a lot of time playing a game. It might be wise to limit playing time. And while we're on the subject, you may wonder how much time you have before these electronic games are sold out. Well, we visited several stores, and they say they're fully stocked for Christmas. They may even have a few left over if you want to buy them after Christmas.
He doesn't like asteroids that much, and Space Invaders just plain bores him. Still, he scores almost 140,000 points every Saturday and became the world champion of the asteroid video game. Mary Tillotson reports from Washington.
While the real astronauts were streaking back to Earth aboard the shuttle, 16 teenagers huddled over computer screens in a darkened room in Washington, fighting imaginary Star Wars and each other for the title of Worldwide Atari Asteroid Champ. That title went to Andy Breyer of Chicago, whose winning form you can see on the screen. The roster of finalists in this competition is proof of how international a craze computerized play is. Kids from Belgium, Hong Kong, France, Italy, Spain, 9 countries in all, plus the United States.
It's fun, and I always liked it just in the arcade when you try to get in the high scores, you know, the 10 top high scores on the machine. It's just fun to be top 1 or something.
Ted Ansley is a 17-year-old computer games winner from Maryland. His mother, Nancy, admits his fascination with computer games used to worry her.
I didn't want to become addicted to that sort of thing that might lead to a gambling taste. But after the novelty wore off, he didn't spend nearly as much time.
And you didn't worry nearly as much?
And I didn't worry nearly as much. In fact, I kind of was interested in his scores from time to time. I think it's a computer age, and I think this is based on computerized techniques and technology, and if he's quick and adaptive to that sort of ability, I think it's all to his benefit in the future.
Science fiction writer Isaac Asimov has said there should be no mystery about why kids love computers. Asimov says the computer game never gets mad, never breaks the rules, never quits and goes home, never makes the player have to cope with those irritating characteristics exhibited by people. Mary Tillotson, Cable News Network, Washington.
Well, there's a lot of college football today, too, as you might expect. Fred Hickman is here with the...
In 1978, a new Japanese machine appeared on American shores. Although it looked innocent enough, this machine turned out to have some unusual powers. It kept kids mesmerized for hours, made teenage boys forget about girls, and even caused business executives to skip the 3-martini lunch. The machine was Space Invaders, and it became so popular that it inspired a song, fan clubs, tournaments, and even caused a serious shortage of coins in Japan. Space Invaders prompted a video game revolution in the United States, as more than 30 computer and electronics companies started designing new games and competing for our quarters. In 1980, Americans spent $3.3 billion playing video games. That's more money than the total combined budgets for the cities of Chicago, Boston, Washington, Dallas, and Cincinnati last year. Who's playing the games? Well, if you go to any arcade, you're likely to see people of all ages. But game manufacturers tell us that the overwhelming majority, about 85% of all the players, are teenage males.
One main reason is like the teenage kids under 16, they can't drive yet, so they can't go out cruising around, and you know, they need something to do, so they come here and they waste their money on the games.
It's something like a sport almost, parts of it. Just coordination and developing patterns.
It lets you release some of your tensions and, you know, lets you think for a minute that you're a pilot of a spaceship destroying aliens that are attacking the Earth.
It's good just to sit down and not have to think for a while and just blow things up. You know, like you hear about people that go out and smash their cars into trees because they're just fed up. This is a good way of taking out your aggressions without doing any harm.
While the kids are busy playing the games, the manufacturers are busy making them. The Atari Company in Sunnyvale, California, is the oldest U.S. manufacturer of video games, and the company estimates that business has increased 300 or 400% in the past few years. Don Osborne is the vice president of sales. Why is it, do you think, Don, that the games have become so popular at this particular point in time?
We are a space-age society. We are an electronic society. We are a society, and especially at the teenage level, that has grown up with an enormous amount of exposure to television. The interest in video games is simply a reflection of that.
If we weren't an electronic society, we wouldn't have video games at all. Small printed circuit boards inside the machines contain the complicated information that makes the games work. The brain of the whole operation is this tiny microprocessor. In 1950, it would have taken a room full of computers to perform the data processing functions of today's microcircuits. Sophisticated technology is also essential in designing the games. Teams of engineers work to translate the ideas for the games into the computer programs which will get them on the screen. The entire process, from original concept to when a game goes on the market, can take over a year. What is it that makes a good game?
Typically, a game has to be easy to learn how to play in the beginning, but it must be difficult to master. That's very, very important. We also find that a successful game today must be a game that, as the player's skill increases, that player can have the opportunity to play for longer and longer periods of time. If they can develop the skill and abilities, they want to be able to play for as long as they can.
The amount of time some people can play the games is staggering. Greg Davies, an 18-year-old from Fresno, California, played Asteroids for 31 hours on just 1 quarter. His final score for the game, a record 15.5 million points. To get this good, Greg practiced for a year, pumping hundreds of dollars in quarters into Asteroids. Still, he thinks it was worth it.
You make a lot more friends around here. People look up to you, you know. There's a lot of people that, oh, well, here, you know, here's Greg. Here comes Greg again.
Did it change your life, Greg?
Oh, yeah. It's now my life kind of centers around the games, arcades and stuff. Right now, that's my thing.
If you're looking for teenagers in Mount Prospect, Illinois, you're likely to find them at Mother's Pinball Arcade. With its low-level lighting and constant rock music, Mother's has become a kind of hangout for the local youth. Bill Herman owns the arcade.
How often do the kids come in? I mean, are there repeaters, regulars that you see a lot?
There's a curve. There's initial exposure to games where the people come in almost every day for maybe a month, and then it tapers off to where it's maybe 2 or 3, 4 times a week. But there is a curve. That initial exposure really gets people in. Once they get exposed to games, if they've never played some of the top games, they come in and play them, then they come in every day. They just can't wait to get back to try and do better on the game.
Some of the regular customers we talked to said they practically live here at Mother's. By their own admission, they're part of a growing group of video addicts.
Do you get addicted to the games? Definitely. If the game beats me, you know, I just feel like I have to go out and get it, and I keep trying until I do.
You want to get the high score in the game every time you come in, and if you don't, you just pump in another quarter.
If you're infatuated with a machine, you can think of almost nothing else and just concentrate on it.
Steve Ritchie is a video game designer.
What do the kids get out of playing a game? They bring anything beneficial away from it?
Definitely. I think some of the benefits are, it definitely improves your motor skills. Your reaction time can improve on a game from one day to the next, and it really tests them. You feel very satisfied when you're finished playing. You feel like you've accomplished something. You've beaten a machine.
While playing video games may have some benefits, this obsession with the games can also have negative effects.
Sometimes I'll go over at lunch and start playing the games and miss a class after lunch or something.
Has it touched into your grades at all?
I've probably moved down about 1 grade since I started playing. 1 or 2 grades down. I'm about B's or C's right now.
How do your folks feel about it? I might imagine you must have some kind of ambiguous feelings. You know, on the one hand, you're the champion. On the other hand, your grades have gone down a notch.
I think they kind of like it because they always know where I'm at. They know I'm not off causing trouble somewhere. They know they can just call the arcade or call Round Table and I'll be there.
Not all parents are in favor of their children spending time and money playing video games. In several states, parent groups are trying to pass laws regulating the use of the machines.
Use and ownership of amusement devices.
We went to a town meeting in Irvington, New York, where the citizens were considering passing an ordinance to prevent young teenagers from playing the games and to restrict the number of games that would be allowed in the town. The debate started because the local junior high school is located right across the street from a delicatessen where the kids like to hang out when they're not in class. This year, the deli installed 3 video games, and some parents got concerned.
There were children stopping on their way to school in the morning at 8:15 or whatever, and playing a few games and coming in a few minutes late to school because they were involved in the games. There were children using their lunch money. Instead of eating lunch, it was much more fun playing games and cared about lunch.
Although some of the kids admitted they spend up to $5 a day on the games, they all thought it was unfair for the town to pass laws to stop them from playing.
I don't think the town has any right to restrict us from using our money because it's our money, you know? I mean, the parents are one thing, but I don't think the town should do anything about it. I think it's up to the parents to make the rules, or the kids to make their own rules. I don't like it. This is supposed to be a free country, land of opportunities. I want opportunity to play a game.
As it turned out, the town decided not to put an age limit on the games, but they did pass a ruling that would make it impossible for an arcade to open in Irvington. This isn't the first time rules have been passed against amusement games.
New York City completes a roundup of thousands of pinball machines, each valued at about $100.
In 1938, all of the pinball machines in New York City were confiscated and destroyed, and it was 38 years before they were legal again. But today's video game manufacturers don't seem worried. While individual towns may restrict the use of the games, overall, business continues to boom. There are 500,000 video games in the United States today, and industry sources say there will be a lot more. The real future of video games, however, isn't in the hands of either the manufacturers who are pushing the games or the parents who want to stop them.
The player, the person who is willing to spend the quarter, he's the dominant force.
Do you think that video games are going to be here to stay, or are they just a fad that's going to go away?
They'll be here to stay.
I think it might die down a little bit.
I think they're going to be around for a long time. Because they say we're living in space age. These games are space age.
Do you think that they're here to stay, or is it just another hula hoop sort of?
Probably another hula hoop.
No, I think they're going to be around for good. Too many people are hooked on them now. I don't think they're going to end that quick.
It's been called the continent's #1 growth industry, and in the past year, it's brought in more revenue than all major sports combined. Its gross receipts are larger than the movie business and the recording industry together. It's the seductive world of video games, a world which demands of its devotees enormous commitments in time and involvement. In return, it confers the illusion of power at 25 cents a shot.
Not just of the game, but of the world.
It only costs 25 cents to take part in this apocalyptic world, but for the gods who created it, it is worth billions. Among other things, it is a world requiring keen eye and hand coordination, tremendous concentration, and above all, a passion to confront the dangers, fears, and challenges of another world with simple virtuosity. It is the world of video games. Do you sometimes feel you're in a rut, that life has become boring and routine? Well, in a sparsely furnished office in a rundown section of Chicago, there's a young man with a mission. For some time, he has been designing very successful video games, which are supposed to put you back in the driver's seat. Eugene Jarvis, at 27, considers himself an old-timer in the video games business. The hit games he has designed include Defender and Robotron.
Well, it's sort of the ultimate fantasy, where you are the only force left between evil and good. And of course, in our normal day lives, we a lot of times we get the feeling that we just don't really matter. You know, we're there, but if I did my job or I didn't do my job, nobody would notice, you know, because society is so big. And here you are, where you're on the line, and it's like things really count here. And sometimes in real life, it seems like it doesn't really matter what I do, things are just going to go the way they go.
Within months of appearing on the market in 1981, his game Defender shot to the top and stayed there. For Williams, the company that owned it, his idea was worth $100 million.
You're flying a spaceship, and you're the #1 guy out there, and it's up to you. You're responsible for what happens to this planet that you're protecting from the alien menace, and you can blow it or you can succeed, and I think it really gives you a sense of accomplishment if you're able to stave off the humanoid holocaust for a few attack waves and keep mankind going that much longer. It's the ultimate fantasy where you're saving mankind from destruction.
Shortly after the success of Defender, Jarvis left the company and started his own, partially because he wasn't attracted enough by the bonus they offered him, and partially because he finds any corporate structure too stuffy. Designers' salaries range between $20,000 and $40,000 a year, with no share of the profits. It was here that he next designed Robotron, in which the player must save the last human family on the planet from robots. They are trying to capture them for their zoo. He is now working on a new design, which he estimates will take up to a year to complete. And not unlike the pop music trade, you're only as good as your last hit.
This year's hit is next year's firewood, and
It's that tough, this business.
it is. I mean, 3 years from now, you'll ask somebody what Defender was, and they'll go, I don't know. You know, it's really a very fast-moving thing. Players, the one thing they don't like to get stuck in the same reality. Just like they don't like to get stuck in real life, they don't like to get stuck on the same game for any length of time, because then it starts getting to be what they're trying to escape.
There are over 1 million video machines now in place across North America. Most of them have been built and assembled here in the Atari factory in California. It all began with a game called Pong in 1972 and an investment of $500. 4 years later, Warner Communications bought Atari for $28 million. Last year, its estimated sales totaled $900 million. $1 billion empire so that everyone can be their own star. A few hours from Hollywood in Lakewood, California, Phil's Video Arcade is hosting the first annual Video Championships. It is a 3-day marathon pitting the best in California against the best in North Carolina. No prizes have been offered other than the normal adulation that comes with breaking another world record.
Antonio's just broken his own world record. The previous record was 5,600,000. The current record now is 6,198,490.
New scores are recorded every 15 minutes and monitored in a central computer in Iowa. In his hourly phone calls to North Carolina, arcade owner Phil Iatti checks the latest numbers.
Okay, I'm just going to get an update. Any changes in Centipede? How about Pac-Man? Anything higher than 299? How about Stargate? You start that guy off? Okay, counting it up, it's somewhere around, at the moment, about 7 and 10 for us. You got about 7 games there, and it's 10 for us. And there's still a couple more that have to be decided. He's cooking. He's probably sleeping now, but he'll be cooking later.
Play continued through the night. Several new world records were set, then broken again. Those less skilled took on some older and less challenging games, while others were content simply to watch history in the making. And like all makers of history, sometimes the pressures at a critical moment can be unbearable.
What kind of movement? Do you notice? What kind of movements do you do?
Mostly punching, kicking, screaming. And,
you don't look like the type. You look really cool.
I do?
How come the machine gets under your skin like that?
Well, my mind gets concentrated on one thing, and if I'm just looking at the screen for hours and hours and something goes wrong after, I'm almost going to beat a high score. It does kind of get you nervous and mad and all that.
And here is what can make you kick and scream. One of the many tiny mass-produced brains which may cost as little as 99 cents. Closer examination reveals the crisscrossed pathways of thousands of semiconductors, microscopic highways of photo-etched silicon that can instantly be directed to ridicule, destroy, or praise you. To determine just when video creatures do what they do, Atari designers and technicians gather at a villa to conduct regular brainstorming sessions. And here, like co-authors in a high-tech fantasy play, each creature is given a character and script.
Well, as it becomes deadlier and deadlier.
As one obstacle,
the snake eats the gun.
Yeah.
Just touching it, eats the gun. No, it eats it. Is it physically trying to hit the base, or?
Main idea is something dropping a la
snaky.
A la Space Invaders.
It must have a motivation to
gravity.
Gravity.
Okay.
It's a fantasy, but curiously enough, in our efforts to escape reality and go into these imaginary realms, we're reassured by good things like gravity, or having 2 arms and 2 legs, or a big mouth to eat things with, or something, and a lot of our fantasy really does relate to reality, I think, and in some ways perhaps exaggerated, such as Pac-Man, where your whole being is condensed down to being a massive digestive tract and consuming dots, but we're familiar with that, and it's a pleasurable thing to do.
To further understand the secret pleasures of eating dots, we went to Davis, California, population 36,000. a laid-back university town known for its research into solar energy and a claim to have more bicycles per capita than any other town in North America. Now on the list, Pac-Man capital of the world. And here in a video parlor called the Library, we find out why. In the land of fast food chains, consumers' appetite for Pac-Man has pushed its lifetime sales to #1. This man, Ed Bosso, 22 and working on his PhD in math, discovered that there was a definite pattern of travel in Pac-Man which prevented capture. He had broken the computer's program and become a national hero.
Have you become some sort of a celebrity around Davis because of your achievement, Ed?
Yeah, I'd have to say yes. A lot of people recognize me around arcades and similar places. A lot of times I'll be playing a game and I'll hear a little kid in the back say, hey, I know who that is. Ed Basil.
You get a kick out of it?
Oh, yeah, always.
But doesn't it take the fun out of the game now that you have broken the pattern? Where's the challenge?
You're right. It has taken the fun out of the game, and I don't play much anymore. I've played a couple times to amuse friends, but that's about it. I got 2 million points once and played for 3.5 hours. I walked away with 3 of my men left, and since then I've never really played a serious game.
Interest in video games has also spawned a lucrative secondary industry in publishing. Countless books, magazines, and articles now vie for the privilege of providing the best clues to understanding the games. Craig Kuby, formerly a lawyer for Ralph Nader, has written a book on how to beat the games. What one reviewer has called the best video volume in the universe. It's amusing on the outside, but serious on the inside.
Do you have to be aggressive? Do you have to be competitive?
I think both those things are very helpful, yes. I think the more you sort of attack the machine, attack the game, the better you do. You fire off a lot of shots, you concentrate a great deal. If your mind is somewhere else, your score is going to be low.
Why is this such a great machine?
It is an extraordinarily addictive machine because if you lose, you don't lose by much. Also, if you lose, if you're destroyed, it's particularly humiliating. There's this sound of an explosion as though there's been a hand grenade detonated in a garbage can and you're in the can, and you don't like that. You want to avoid that.
Let me understand this. This machine humiliates you if you don't do well?
Somewhat, yes.
Why don't you put the quarter in?
What you do here is you fire and blow away as many of these space turkeys as possible, but you blow them away in a certain order.
Very hostile when you play.
I don't like
these
guys. They've been destroying me since 1979. You start to personalize the game. You don't just see these figures as some sort of animation on some piece of electronic machinery. You see them as the enemy, and an enemy that's bent on destroying you. In addition, it's important, once you know much about video games, to do well, because you know that video games mean something about you. It's not just a matter of chance or luck. You know that if you've done well, you've concentrated well, you've developed good strategies, and if you get really good, you can not only control your little laser base, but you can absolutely master the game to the extent you can show off on it, do things that no one else can do.
All that for only a quarter.
All that for only a quarter.
You really do get upset every time one of those little bombs hits one of your little men there and it goes kaboom.
Yeah, it can be upsetting. Actually, for me, it's often a learning. Well, my God.
Sorry about that.
That was humiliating.
I'm sorry.
Yes. See, what happened there was I was distracted.
Forgive me. This is against the etiquette of the pit.
Well, as you know, my background is in law, and I think we could settle this out of court for another quarter.
It's an interactive television set. It's participatory cinema. It's a way in which you can react and have feedback and exist within the reality of the TV set.
In this game, the player reacts to war.
I don't die so easy.
The TV reality here is complete with the choppers of an old TV war. The simulated battles of the video games have also interested the United States Army.
Die, son.
They have asked Atari to produce a model that would be suitable as an inexpensive trainer to augment the recruits' field experience. By everyone's calculation, video games are here to stay, for at least a while. Atari certainly thinks so. This past year, they have spent an estimated $20 million in research and development. Before a game hits the streets, management takes it for a test drive to iron out any wrinkles. The revised game is then previewed by sample players, They know their reactions are being monitored by the designers who watch through a two-way mirror. They're hoping for another big winner, like Space Invaders, which grossed $2 billion, 4 times the gate receipts of Star Wars. $2 billion, a quarter at a time.
They're almost everywhere, and this is at a time for both Canada and the United States when the economy is in a certain amount of trouble. 10% of the people in the U.S. are unemployed, so they may not have time to invest in a $20 Broadway play or a $1,000 trip to some resort area, but they have a quarter.
The average life of any game is 8 months, the peak of its money-making and record-setting interest. And for players and designers alike, it is a world of hero today and gone tomorrow.
Antonio Medina has just now broken his own world's record.